Heather, she has a hard time. You know, she struggles in getting up in the mornings. She struggles with day-to-day activities.
It's been hard for Heather. It's just been hard for the whole family.
I don't think our life will ever be normal. What you call like a normal family. I try hard. I try to make our life as normal as possible. We still go swimming. We have our family nights. It takes their mind off of the stuff that, we try not to think about. Jacob was born on February 27, 2007. And he was a joy. I had 2 girls, and that would make it complete. I'd have a little boy too. A mama builds that certain bond with her son. It's a different kind of love. I only have a few pictures of Jacob because a lot of my pictures were burned by Eric. So the pictures that I do have, I have to make sure they're safe. I don't have him here to remember his face. I have a recording on my phone that the last time I talked to Jacob, and I still listen to it a lot. I've listened to it so much because I don't want to forget what he sounds like. I married Eric on September 9th, 2003. When Eric and I were first married, I couldn't ask for better. That was my Prince Charming. He charmed me in every way he could. But when the abuse started happening, I was not allowed to work. I wasn't allowed to talk to my family.
My daughter had to sneak around and, do things. She made phone calls to me. I made phone calls to her when Eric was at work.
I lived in Eric's world. There wasn't a world outside of our house. He took me to Missouri and took me away from my family.
We didn't have too much of a fun life in Missouri. A typical day would be Mama doing cleaning, cooking, and Eric would come home and come in the door, and then he'd be mad, and then he would start screaming and yelling at Mama. It didn't make me feel too good because he treated my mom like she was a dog.
I had been talking to my cousin about some of the things that were going on. He told me I needed to get out. So Eric knew something was wrong with me that night, and he questioned me. I was thinking, well, maybe I could talk about it, and then maybe, everything will be okay. And that was a mistake. He started jumping in my face and, screaming and hollering at me.
They didn't know, but I was in the hallway, and I seen Eric. He had his hand around her throat, and he was digging his thumb into her eye right there.
They seen everything, and I saw the fear in my kids' eyes, and, all I did was cried because, they've never seen it before. And that whole night, I didn't sleep. I was, I knew that I had to get out of there. I knew it was getting worse. So I told my oldest daughter, I said, start packing everything in bags. And we're going to shove it up under the bed so that way, just in case he comes home, he won't see anything. Because I knew that if he would come home and saw me leaving, there would have been a lot of trouble. So we got everything packed up and loaded in the van. And I was heading home. I was heading to Alabama. And that's when I received a phone call from Eric. And my oldest told me, she said, "Mama, don't answer the phone." And stupidly, I did. He told me, well, you've always promised me and the kids that if you ever decided to leave, you would let us say goodbye. So I fell for it.
I told her not to stop because I knew that he was planning something.
When Eric comes in, he pulls up behind my van and blocks me in where I couldn't go anywhere. And he gets out and he's, ranting and raving. Well, he took Jacob. Jacob didn't give a fight because that was his daddy. He was used to his daddy.
I had a very bad feeling in the bottom of my stomach. And I was thinking, there's something gonna happen, and it's gonna tear this family apart.
Heather drove back to West Plains and filed a domestic violence report.
And I told them that I'm scared for my son's safety.
However, she's told that since Eric is Jacob's biological father, she cannot take custody of Jacob.
I begged him, I said, please do something. So I'd done the only thing that I knew I could do, and I came to Alabama with the girls. And I thought that I can fight for him here.
Once in Alabama, Heather immediately began to seek custody of her son.
He advised me to try to go about everything legally. I'd call every day. I would call the police department. I called social services in West Plains, telling everybody how I was worried about my son's safety. And I knew that Eric was unstable, and nobody still would help me.
As Heather struggled to get custody of Jacob, she began to notice her eldest daughter exhibiting unusual behaviors.
She was kind of like hiding in a shell. She wasn't, herself. She wasn't really talking much.
On April 3rd, 2011, she came forward with allegations of sexual abuse against her stepfather, Eric Chappelle.
We took her to the emergency room in Jackson, and they evaluated her there and talked to her, and then a detective was called in.
Detective Ron Baggett was assigned to the case. Upon hearing the details, he contacted the Department of Human Resources, or DHR. With Heather and her sister-in-law, Melissa Reinhart, present, he talked on speakerphone to social worker Shantez Parker.
When she first got on the phone, everything was okay. But as soon as she heard my name, everything changed. She said, oh, Heather Chappelle, I've heard of her. She said, I'm working on a case of her right now because Eric and his family have already made reports against her.
This baby had just come out and said, hey, look, this man raped me. And it was like she didn't care. She didn't believe it.
Despite Shantez's claim, emergency room records clearly substantiate the claims of sexual abuse. Two days after her visit to the emergency room, Heather's 10-year-old daughter had her forensic interview with the Child Advocacy Center. Present were Mary English, who conducted the interview, Detective Ron Baggett, and DHR social worker Shantez Parker.
I was 4 or 5 when he started. And then it was all the way till I was about 11. It was almost every day. He said if I ever told anybody, he would hurt my mom. And he said that it would hurt my mom any way that he had to.
Over the course of the hours-long interview, Shantez Parker was informed in detail of Eric's long-term abuse and threats. And though she knew that young Jacob was still in Eric's custody, on Thursday, April 7th, 2011, Shantez Parker informed Eric of the abuse allegations against him.
And Eric, he called Mama and said the family was going to go down. And they did. And I felt something was going to happen. I had a very bad feeling in the bottom of my stomach. I thought that I would never be able to see him again. And then April 10th, 2011, he killed Jacob.
We're learning more about the death of a little boy from West Plains. Court documents show 4-year-old Jacob Chappelle drowned. Jacob's father, Eric Chappelle, is charged with murder, assault on a law enforcement officer, and armed criminal action.
Court documents show Chappelle told a detective he drowned his son and planned to kill himself because of child molestation allegations.
They had called from the Child Advocacy Center and told my daughter to come up there. They had something important to tell her concerning Jacob. And we went up there. And then they took Heather in this room.
Shantez Parker, another DHR worker, is there. And he said, I've got some bad news.
And all I could hear was her screaming. So Heather comes and tells them, please get my mama, break it to her gently. 'Cause she's never got to see him in life and she never held him in her arms.
When I walk outside after all is done, Shantez comes up to me and my mom, and she tells me, she said, I had to do my job. And I said, what kind of job did you have to do? She said, I had to call Eric and tell him what he was being accused of to give him a chance to defend himself. I said, you did what? She said, I had to call him. And I said, you killed my baby. I said, how could you call him?
She told my daughter that she had contacted Eric. And then she tried to cover it up and say, I meant DHR.
Heather called me immediately after that and she was tore up, and she was telling me, this lady just admitted to me that she called him. She's the reason my son is dead.
I called my cousin. I said, I need you to come outside, make sure my girls stay in the house. I said, because I got to talk to you. I didn't mean for it to happen like it did, but I hit my knees as soon as I got out of the car. And I told her that he killed my baby. And I didn't want my girls out there because I wanted to tell them separate, but they heard me. And my girls went to screaming and hollering. It was a bad day. I said, I don't want him dressing him. I said, because I don't want his clothes cut. So he was buried in his Spider-Man pajamas, and we went in there and we dressed him. That was the last time I got to dress my baby. I said, I want to kiss my baby goodnight one last time. I said, I haven't been able to kiss him goodnight in over a month. I kissed him. My oldest kissed him. The hardest part was I was sitting there watching my youngest daughter. And she kept asking me, because she didn't understand. She said, Mama, why is Jacob cold? She said, Mama, why won't Jacob wake up and play with me? But that's the picture with her hand that y'all have of him in the casket. That was the hardest day of my life. No parent should bury their child. And especially not 4.
According to DHR policy, for a case to be considered a CAN, or case of abuse and neglect, the situation must meet the following criteria. First, a child must be allegedly at risk of serious harm or have experienced serious harm. Next, the person allegedly responsible must have access to another child, thereby placing that child at risk of serious harm. And last, there must be a possibility that the child may experience serious harm unless DHR intervenes. As a result of the forensic interview, Shantez Parker was aware that the Chappelles met the criteria for a case of abuse and neglect. Since Shantez knew that 4-year-old Jacob was in the custody of the offending parent and thus at risk of serious harm, she broke DHR policy when she failed to contact Missouri Child Welfare.
If Shantez would have called DHR, my daughter would have Jacob today.
Though she had first-hand knowledge of a vulnerable child in the physical custody of the alleged perpetrator, she violated DHR policy when she failed to notify law enforcement in Missouri to file an incident report.
The detective in Missouri, he cussed her for everything she was worth. Because what he was saying was, being in another state, she should have contacted them and let them handle it. She had no authority to call Eric at all.
In addition, she failed to clear agency records properly by failing to review the Missouri Central Registry and obtain any state records related to Eric Chappelle. Though DHR policy is clear on who to contact, Parker failed to call any of them. The one person Shantez did talk to is the one person DHR policy specifies should not be contacted: the person allegedly responsible for abuse or neglect, Eric Chappelle. Missouri Department of Social Services records show that Shantez admitted that she called Eric Chappelle and explained the sexual abuse allegations against him. Phone records indicate that Eric Chappelle indeed had an 18-minute conversation with the Department of Human Resources on April 7, 2011, just 3 days before Jacob was killed. By informing him of the abuse allegations, she violated DHR's confidentiality policy, placing Jacob at substantially higher risk.
I honestly believe, had it not been for Shantez doing what she did, that baby would still be here. She played as big a role in that innocent angel's death as the man that held him underwater.
It's just been hard for Heather, but we've all tried to be there for her and tried to help her in every way that we can. And it's been hard for the whole family. My daughter, Sheila Cowan, is Jacob's grandmother. And Sheila has not been the same since this has all happened. She's going through therapy right now, and they told me that she had a nervous breakdown over all this. And she's tried to commit suicide twice.
He said if I ever told anybody, he would hurt my mom. And after I told, I thought that it was my fault that my brother was dead because I told. And he said that it would hurt my mom any way that he had to.
She kind of blamed herself for a lot, and she was pulling away from everybody.
I have to watch these babies cry, and I have to answer questions for these children. I pray that Heather finds peace. I pray that the babies find peace.
The night that Eric drowned Jacob, I can honestly see Jacob in the bathtub. I can see Eric holding him down. I have nightmares of it. I can see Jacob looking at him and saying, why? Why are you doing this? And I live through that every day. I made a promise to Jacob at his graveside. I promised him that I would make sure that his justice is served to the fullest. The way that I go through every day is I tell myself, you promised this to Jacob. You promised this to your girls. I tell my oldest daughter all the time when she breaks down, I say, we promised Jacob. We promised that his justice would be served. I said, so we got to make sure that that's done. I'll never forget.